Well, looky there. Do you see that? It says we are live.
Fantastic.
Fantastic. Okay, so I always start with a couple things. First and foremost, I like to let people know that Tipsy Tuesday is not that kind of tipsy. It is about bringing tips and tools and tactics to help people just live more authentically, with more clarity, and just more aligned in their values and how they want to show up and make an impact in the world, be it personally or professionally. Now, if you want to have a drink and you want to get tipsy with us, that is totally okay, but that is not what this is about. Okay. So that's first and foremost. And then secondly, I just want to say welcome and thank you so much for being my guest this month.
Thank you for having me. I am so honored to be here. I've been keeping up with the show. It gets a lot of visibility and traction. So I feel like I am in the company of greatness and that I have arrived. So I'm honored to
Hey,
be here.
this is the company of greatness because you are doing great things. And first, I'm gonna introduce you a bit, but I like to let guests, I think, speak for themselves and introduce themselves because who better to talk about yourself than yourself? But Miss Leniqua'dominique Jenkins, we're gonna say your whole name, okay? Are running for DC Council at Large. But I will say that today is as much about learning about your platform as it is just to learn about you personally. One of my sayings over and over is that politics is very personal. And I think it is so important to be able to make a connection and see yourself or see your mama, see your family, see your community in someone
Absolutely.
that you think should hold a seat to represent you. And I will say this with full genuine like fully genuinely is that I love you. I've known you now for what 10 years or so. I have seen this journey of yours in so many different ways. And I'm very proud of you. I am
Oh,
very,
thank you.
very proud of you. And I've known you in a multiple different lights. So from my NCBW days to just my personal days. And I go back to when you called me to take a walk. And I thought we were just going on a walk. And you say, "Hey, sis, I'm running for council." And I was like, "Oh, is that what we doing? We running for council? I love it." And yes, I've been all over the place and I haven't been able to be as active and involved as possible, but I'm so happy to have you here today to share, with everyone what it is that you bring to the table, how you got to this moment, and maybe leave us all with a little bit of extra, fire ourselves for how we can go out and make a bigger difference in our lives. So, hey, welcome to Tipsy Tuesday. Okay,
I've
yes, get
always
into
wanted to
it.
do that. I've seen you
No,
do it so many times.
today is your day. Today is your day. All right, so tell us a
Absolutely.
little bit about who you are and how you arrived at this decision to run for DC Council at large.
So I am many things, like most women, particularly Black women. I wear many hats. A lot of them are in service to the district. I've been a ANC commissioner. I've been a journalist writing stories about happenings east of the river. I've been a preschool teacher, successful children's book author. Like two of my books are in every DCPS public school. My book has been used by the African American Smithsonian in Anacostia to have hard conversations about race. I've worked for former and current council members, current PhD student, and also the graduate student government president at the University of the District of Columbia. I've written policy and legislation in Africa, India, and Spain. But most importantly, I'm a super aunt. I have 8 amazing nieces and nephews. I'm a caregiver to my really big intergenerational family. And I am really excited to have this conversation, not just about what I do and my leadership style, but just like my vision for the city and also to be in company with you. I'm just going to throw the ball back very briefly because I got to give you some public shine. I love the way that you're showing up, the way you're leveraging your social capital, the way you're raising awareness around critical topics. And this experience is truly a gift, and I really appreciate your consistency in showing up.
Oh, thank you so much. I appreciate that. every day I wake up and I'm like, "Ugh, do I have more to give? Do I have more to give?" And then I'll get something from somebody who keeps me going. So I appreciate that.
Yes,
So before we get into
absolutely.
it, and I said, I'm gonna try to be as efficient and effective as possible, but there's so much to cover because she has doors to knock on, she has
I
dollars to
do.
raise,
I
but we
do.
gotta talk to the people. We're gonna talk to the people. Um, Before we get into this, I want to know, right, at the end of this conversation, what would be kind of one key thing, if anyone's listening and watching today, that you want them to be able to walk away with as it relates from something you've learned from your journey, that you've learned from campaigning, or just where you are? What would be that one thing that you would want them to leave here today with?
I would love for folks to know many things, but one of the nuggets that's kind of like a compass for me is separating the fact from the fiction. Sometimes we give ourselves a lot of negative self talk. I can't do this. I'm not ready. I need this and that to align before I can move forward. And if you have a piece about it, if it's purposed on your heart to do, like think about those anchoring thoughts. Am I passionate about it? Is it important? Can I be impactful? As I tell my nieces and nephews, sometimes it's just a very simple platitude. Does it help or does it hurt? Very simple before we speak or before we act. Does it help or does it hurt? So, really separating the fact from the fiction, leaning into the facts and moving forward and getting it done with your voice shaking, with your eyes watering, leaning into your truth and getting it done.
I love that. That is straight to the point. Particularly, does it help? Does it hurt? I think I can absolutely apply that every single time before I start making a decision or opening my mouth to say something. Is
Yes.
it going to help or is it going to hurt? So let's talk about.
Particularly, I'm sorry. I was going to
Go
say,
ahead.
particularly in a climate where folks are emboldened to give their unsolicited opinions, like on social media, it's become reflexive in a lot of places, particularly online, to just say something. Like, it doesn't have to be nice. It doesn't have to be thoughtful. We'll just say it like, that outfit isn't nice, or why are they doing that? And it's just hurtful. And asking ourselves that question, does it help or does it hurt, really puts parameters on humanity, particularly before we speak.
Well, then let's start then with the decision to be either helpful or hurtful to your community. How did you land in this place where you said, you know what? I'm going to put myself out here. I am going to be vulnerable. I'm going to be all the things that I have to be aggressive and be all right around the clock, working and knocking on doors and hearing no's and getting a lot of yeses. But how did you get to this decision to run? And what did you have to put aside to land there in a very comfortably and confident way?
So, a couple of things happened. It wasn't just one day I said, oh, I'm going to do this. My life has been a sequence of showing up, solving problems, supporting neighbors, um, listening to neighbors, and getting things done. For example, when I moved into my community, we didn't have an ANC commissioner. I ran for office as an ANC commissioner. I didn't even fully understand what that was because ANC is so particular to DC. For those of you that are just now plugging in or seeing the dramatic pause, there are lots of things that prepared me for leadership, prepared me for my run for office. It wasn't a singular moment. It was showing up for neighbors. It was solving problems in the community. It was seeing opportunities to stand up. Like when I moved to Deanwood and we didn't have an ANC commissioner about 10 years ago, and deciding to fill the vacant seat and get things done for communities and friends. So I would describe my journey as multiple steps leading me to arrive right to this moment. Lived
Mhm.
experience, personal experience, and professional experience as well.
Okay, so I want to push you even further because I'm looking at some of the folks who I see joining us, and I'm looking at some of the messages I'm getting. And we kind of touched on this before we came on screens. There are many of us who see things that need to be addressed, or we see things that we think we want to aspire to achieve or accomplish. But that doesn't mean that we take action, right? Or that we make a decision that I'm going to now show up differently or put myself out there. What was it? I mean, because you could see that there was maybe no ANC commissioner representation, or maybe there was a park that was overrun. Like you could see all types of things that are happening. I mean, you run businesses. How do you get to that point where you're literally saying, I'm okay with taking these big major risks and then moving into action? I mean, you have children's books, you're a business owner,
Yes.
you're big, bold things. How do you get there?
So essentially, let's see if I can synthesize this right. So, part of me stepping into leadership was being introspective, looking at myself, acknowledging the life that I had created. You know, I was a social entrepreneur. I had a school, I still have a school and an orphanage in East Africa. I homeschooled kids, right? My brother and my father had both been incarcerated. So, I was a
Mm,
primary caregiver. Part of what nudged me to start my business was making sure that when they came home, they had respectable work, but I had the mobility of creating my day, spending time with the children, taking care of my mom. And I had to decide, do I want to have a life of just privilege and like
mhm.
being singular and self orientated? Or do I really want to lean into my purpose and to do all the things that I'm already doing with more intention and live more fully? And that's what I decided to do. There was
Yeah.
a grieving process, obviously, because of some of the things that I had grown accustomed to, like disposable free time, not having to accumulate leave. And I mean, I'm speaking because I'm already imagining myself in the seat and what the expectations will be of me. But that's what servant leadership is. It's not all glamorous. It's not necessarily all sexy. There is a grieving when you serve others and you're willing to sacrifice self in the interest of the greater good, or bringing people into policy and bringing all voices to the table. And it's not a progressive thing or a liberal thing, it's an issues by issues thing and a listening thing, um, and centering community thing, and being able to articulate that even with your voice shaking because you know it's the right thing to do.
Let me tell you something that just really touched me about what you said, the grieving process. And I think that that shows up in so many ways because I think I talk a lot about what it takes to get to whatever this next level is in life that you want to get to. And oftentimes people will see the end, right? They'll see someone at a certain position or a certain place or stage in life, but they don't understand all the things that you have to give up or be willing to sacrifice in order to achieve that level of excellence or accomplishment or impact or whatever. And like there are things that you have to be willing to say, I will not do. Right. And it can be petty. Like I
Absolutely.
will grieve giving up going to happy hours after work because I'd much rather be in the gym so I can work on my body, or I'd much rather be in a meditation class or in some type of certification or doing community service. And so I wanted to kind of, highlight that because we may not refer to it necessarily sometimes as a grieving process, but there is a level of like, oh my goodness, it feels so different. It feels so foreign. And so you are giving up something in order to achieve something else. And that's okay. That's part of the journey, that's part of the process. And we have to build for that. It's like that muscle you were saying
Yes.
that people don't use.
And it definitely has to happen. For me, I'm someone that has deep roots professionally in death and dying and end of life planning. You know that when we met, I was scaling the home healthcare agency. The National Coalition of 100 Black Women actually awarded me a micro grant. So I was able to
You
scale
are
to
crazy.
I was the first one. I was able to scale to Maryland and Virginia. I was able to create jobs for my father and my brother when they returned from prison. I was able to employ neighbors and train them to be CNAs and home health aides. And it was beautiful, it was powerful, it was good work. And it requires a grieving, it requires a sacrifice, it requires a heart posture, to
Mm-hmm.
advocate for folks that are overlooked, who are muted, who may not be in the room, but you have the privilege and the access to room to honor those voices and those stories, and those lived experience, and to add humanity to people's experience. That's the type of leadership that the muscle that I'm developing. That's the leadership that I hope to execute. I want it to be poppable. I want people to feel that I care. I want them to feel seen. I want them to bring their authentic selves into the room so that legislation can truly reflect collective values like our heart, for people. And that's not progressive. I don't know when like universal paid leave and caregiving and, making sure that returning citizens had pipelines from workforce development to employment opportunities. Like, that's not progressive. It's not a left thing. That's a heart thing. Like,
Mhm.
culturally, we're having a character problem, we're having a heart problem. So I'm really excited to be showing up, and leading in this particular way as a future at large council member and bringing my whole self and my community and the people I care about and all our neighbors in the district with me.
Yeah. Oh my. Okay. So there's two. Oh, I'm trying to think which way I want to go right now because
I see a lot of comments at the bottom of the
yeah,
screen.
there's some comments. There's comments. I'm just letting you know that they we try. I've been told to not block the screen with comments, but I'm putting them up there so you can see people are commenting and engaged, and they love what you're saying, and so do I. And I have two different directions I want to go right now, but let me close this out with because I love the heart thing, and I want us to come back to this then because we're in a climate I think um, where politics has become so divisive. Some of it's become so foolish. I mean, to your point, you're like, okay, well, there are just certain things that we should be doing for people as a basic order of care, protection, and love. And somehow that becomes a left thing, a right thing, a liberal thing, a progressive, and we're making it more divisive and contentious than it should be. It's like, are we not leading with love and people first and just making sure the folks are taken care of? So I'm going to come back to that. But the other piece is you talked about being in rooms, right? And you have deep, strong roots in Ward 7. You're now running for council at large, which means you are going into expanded rooms, different rooms, additional rooms beyond your community. And as you come into those rooms, you are coming in as Leniqua'dominique Jenkins. When we say
Yes.
16 letters in your first name
Yes. I'm coming in with weight.
with weight, right?
I have a weighty presence when I enter. I do.
And so, I'm just curious, how do you start to evolve first from a platform priority standpoint, because now you have to think beyond 7 and east of the river, but also any pressures or preconceived biases as you go into these additional communities, being Leniqua'dominique Jenkins, right?
Yes, yes. So part of my personal agency and advocacy is ensuring that folks say my name. And I've been that way since I was very, very young. Laniqua Dominique is one first name. I always, always distinguish that because I believe in showing up honestly and authentically. And that starts with having folks say your name. In
Mm,
terms of expansion and entering rooms, it reminds me of this quote by W.E.D. Du Bois. And I'm paraphrasing a bit, but essentially the integrity is there. The integrity is there. And it's as goes the South, so does the nation.
mhm.
And you could replace South with east of the river, and you could replace nation with the District of Columbia. So what we're seeing on a on a macro level, east of the river, is impacting the entire District of Columbia. These aren't isolated cases. It's not a singular
Sure.
situation. Everyone is concerned about affordability. We're in the midst of the highest unemployment rate that we've seen in several years, maybe even decades. I don't have the specific data around that, but it's at a 6.1%,
Yep.
the highest we've ever had. We've seen massive federal cuts. DC is very reliant on federal jobs. 300,000 Black women have lost their jobs. It's a very tumultuous and volatile climate. And unfortunately, it's not distinct to east of the river. So when we make legislation that's pointed towards east of the river, we're actually creating legislation that benefits the entire District of the Columbia.
I agree with
Um,
that.
yes, and that argument can be made essentially for any marginalized, historically overlooked, vulnerable, neglected population. From my vantage point, and what I have the most acuity about is just like the African American community. When you look at the civil rights movement, when you look at the Black Panther movement, you see the birth of um, you see the birth of kindergarten. You see competitive and fair wages. You see women have the right to vote. You see Black men have the right to vote. You see labor laws that center working class people. You see anti discrimination law birth off the experience, particularly of Black people, but in turn, it benefits the entire nation. That is the voice. That's my leadership style, centering people and knowing that it benefits all people. So even though I live east of the river, I'm bringing that academic knowledge and that lived experience to all the rooms because I
Yeah.
truly believe that it benefits everyone when we take care of our neighbors.
I joked when you went off screen. I said, we're about to wrap her up. And then I got this. Yeah, don't wrap her up. I'm not going to wrap you. You know, I'm not.
Thank you, folks that are listening, that she didn't wrap me up because I've
We're
been
not going to wrap.
waiting so long to have a segment on this show. I didn't know that it would be in this capacity, but I've always wanted to be like tipsy too. I was like, one day I just want to be on. So, like, I am on, I am listening, I am leaning in no matter what.
That's right. And I love how you just come right back. Boom. That's the kind of leadership we need. And those are the kind of leadership skills, honestly, that I think more people need to see that when something goes off plan, right? When something is not necessarily the way that you envision or you get a hiccup, you don't fall apart. You just show up and you pick up right where you were and you
Absolutely.
keep it moving and you keep it moving. So if this is the kind of leader that you will be in terms of representing the people, I'm here for it. Thank you.
Absolutely. You could live so many gems from that, like the ability to pivot. Anyone that's been in an executive leadership role or any leadership role knows that it's not if, it's when.
That's
Something
right.
is always going to happen. So, leadership truly is about your ability to pivot, your ability to show grace, your ability to be agile and to maneuver, to be teachable, to listen, all of those things that we're illustrating in real time just
In
by
real
getting
time.
over our tech glitches.
And we didn't plan for this. We didn't plan for this. Oh, this young lady said, thank you, ladies. We thank you, ladies. You're welcome. You're welcome. Uh, one of the things I wanted to also just go a little more into, you talked about kind of going into these additional rooms and, the issues that impact east of the river. I live east of the river, so I'm always happy to see someone highlighting and raising visibility around our community and not just all the things that are wrong. I mean, there's a lot of gems, there's a lot of beauty, right? But across the city, we have a lot of disparity. And so just acting like it's all sitting here east of the river exclusively, I think is just a tired narrative. And so I love the part around if we are rising and raising and addressing the issues east of the river, we are addressing everything that's happening all across the city. And I shared with you that one of the things that I value and love and respect about you is that you're not just in this space saying, here's who I am, here's what I do, but you educate and inform people on the process. And so even me, right? As I've been in public service, a lot of people know I do government for quite some time. But what made me go, oh my goodness, is when you started informing me about the rank voting. And then even before we came on, you were kind of talking about what it means when you get an endorsement. And so I just wanted to give you acknowledgement and letting people know that part of I think a great leader is not just showing up and like, oh, it's about me. It's informing and educating and empowering those who are around you, behind you, below you, above you, with you to come
Indeed.
along. Yeah. So
Indeed.
you want to tell us a little bit about what rank voting means here in
Sure,
the
sure. So absolutely. I believe in like in life, you either teach or you learn. So I'm always very sensitive to those opportunities to learn and also to teach. We talked about this offline, but it just reminds me of my three no's. The first one is be confident about what you know. Just to elevate, we all know that Eris is incredibly bright. I hope that folks can acknowledge that I'm really bright beyond the accolades, beyond like the, stereotypical stuff of degrees. We both have them. but also being honest about what you don't know. Like, we are in the era of information. When you look at history, you know about the dark age and the golden age. So, whatever you want to know, we are in the era of information. It's literally at your fingertips. And then, as a woman and as a Black woman that takes on a lot of voluntary and involuntary labor, knowing when to say no, setting boundaries. So, that is my personal mantra and philosophy. I have many of them, but that has empowered me to lead boldly and confidently. So that is a gift that I would love to share with viewers.
Give
And
us your
then
3 no's again.
know what you know, be confident about what you know, be honest about what you don't know, and then know when to say no.
Know
Boundary
when to
setting.
say no. Yeah.
Yes, those
That's
are the three no's.
I love that. Know what you know what you don't know, and know when to say no. I mean, you dropping gems today. Does it help? Does it hurt? Either you teach or you learn. Come on, Tipsy Tuesday. I'm gonna take these
Everyone's getting their
tips.
money's worth today. I'm glad that
I,
they are sharing their lunch break with us and leaning
I
in.
I
Yes. And
know.
also
All right.
just like teaching, campaigning is very robust. Um, and I didn't have anyone show me how to run for office, and I still don't. But leaning into that era of information, I have the ability to research. And that's the amazing thing about success. It leaves clues. You can
Mm,
read books, you can ask people, you can send a message, you can show a lot of scholarship. But the challenging thing with campaigning is that campaigns move very quickly, very
yeah.
aggressive. The timeline is very slow. In real life. One day in real life is 15 days in a campaign.
Sure.
So a lot of the educating is making sure, like we talked about before, folks are developing that muscle of discipline and civic engagement and understanding how to show up. This is actually what I'm writing my dissertation about, which is strategic organized movement. So knowing
Mm,
how to move the needle politically in terms of civic engagement beyond digital campaigns or beyond protesting. How do we really engage as a community to create change? So back to your original question, one of those ways is by voting. You can vote in person June 16th. This is the first year that DC is using ranked choice voting. New York rolled it out in about 2 years. We're trying to roll it out in 6 months. Um, to synthesize the conversation, you're able to rank up to 5 candidates. Your first choice, hopefully, will be me, highly prepared, smart, ready to lead, centering people. And then you have about 4 backups. So you would bubble in one, Leniqua'dominique. I'm number 3 on the ballot. And then you can pick some alternative choices in case your number one, doesn't get the seat. It'll go to the next person that you selected or that the district selected collectively. So the
mhm.
goal and spirit of this is to get candidates closer to a true democracy, which is 51% engagement, opposed to candidates in the past winning by very thin margins, like
Yeah.
20% or 30%. So the person that wins any election this year will have to have a majority.
Mm. And this is the first time in DC.
This is the first time in DC.
Wow. All right. I'm gonna keep my fingers crossed. I know who my first choice is. But with that, right, we're in I think in a time and an era, and it's kind of coming back to the heart piece that we touched on, um, where I feel, and this could just be me, and I want to hear your observation, where people are feeling a little, I don't want to say check, they're either really riled up and ready to show up and see change, or it's I'm over this political stuff. Like it doesn't matter. It just doesn't matter. Right. And we're seeing a lot of politicians, unfortunately, who it's hard to take serious these days, right? And beyond taking serious, feeling like they genuinely care about people and community. So,
Yeah.
what would be your response to just kind of the lay of the land in terms of people's appetite for politics and being connected and engaged and showing up in that way? And then I want you to tell us why you.
Okay. So I think that folks, I mean, it's a massive race, 700 plus or minus thousand people, right? I'm running a citywide race. My
Mm,
observation has been that the government has been working well for those that have proximity to the capital.
And
And
we're
there's
talking
a
about
lot.
local government, right? Or
Local government. Yeah,
grounding
local
this.
government.
Mhm.
Yes. And leaving folks further away from the capital desiring more. So, one of my key platform issues is equity, making sure that the government is working the same for everyone, no matter where they live. I think that kind of waters the attitude of feeling overlooked, desiring more, being disengaged. I also think that we live in a microwave society. On social media, things happen very quickly. You're able to pick and choose snippets of your life and manufacture, in some cases, a story. And I think that a lot of folks buy into that in terms of how the government works and how legislation moves. So we want like a quick result. We've become very comfortable with our privilege of getting things quickly through Uber Eats, through downloading things, through skipping
Yeah,
commercials. Our attention and stamina and discipline for many things is just very short.
that's right.
The government is kind of like you have to court the legislative process. You know, for things to become a bill, we need you to give sworn testimony. We need you to give written testimony. We have a first reading. We have a second reading. You know, Congress has to approve it. Um, and a lot of people aren't able to close those information gaps or know how to show up and where to show up. A lot of people may be intimidated by the processes. And in turn, we don't get large engagement. People
Mhm.
aren't heard, voices are overlooked or muted, people aren't coming to the table, which is why one of the things that I actually proposed for giving sworn testimony, if you've ever done this, many will agree it is like an episode of like Hunger Games. You don't know when you're going to speak. They give you one time, like 9 a.m. You're not being listened to until 3 o'clock, 4 o'clock in the afternoon. You know, there's no snacks. People have children. When do you pick up your
I need my
kids? When do you go for lunch? You know, you take a day off of work. Everyone doesn't have that ability. You know what I mean? It lends itself to a lot of privilege. And folks don't necessarily realize that free time is a privilege.
that's right.
Delegating tasks is a privilege.
That's
Being
right.
able to have paid time off is a privilege. Being proficient in English in some spaces is a privilege.
Mm.
And policing someone's sound when they have to give sworn testimony, that can be intimidating before a council or elected officials. So, all of these different tactics that limit voice. So, what I propose is creating a tracker. When people give sworn testimony, they're able to track when it's their time to speak, when they're next in the queue. They get an alert to kind of bring to their awareness when they should be speaking. I feel like something even modernizing that process will have people more engaged, more confident that the system's working fairly, and more positive about elected outcomes and about our legislative process. So transparency, participation, engagement, being seen, being heard, all of those things develop the muscle of trust and being engaged. And that's what I'm bringing this election cycle. So, just to synthesize your question and make sure folks caught it, making sure that people are engaged, educating them on how to be engaged, modernizing the process so that voices can be heard, and also education on how to show up.
I love that. I do a lot of work with chief human resource officers, a lot of organizational development and management. And I was listening to the transparency, participation, being seen and being heard. These are all like core values that we apply as we're talking about building culture and belonging and inclusivity, right? And equity across the workspace. And I'm sitting here going, I don't think people often think about how running for office or serving or leading in government is very much like running a business. I mean, there are elements of it that you have to have this organizational component. You have
Yes.
to have these values the same way internally and externally. And I love the piece that you brought up about privilege. I don't think we think about those things as a privilege. And the more that I'm having conversations and connections with people who are working hard and trying
Mhm.
to get by and who do not
Yes.
have jobs that allow for, to your point, the flexibility of PTO in a certain type of way, or they have to show up and be civically engaged. But it's like, okay, well, now I got to be docked hours, I'm going to miss pay or, yeah, I mean, it's just, it all, it, oof, it's got me.
Yes. And I think that sometimes we just have to do a privilege check, or be introspective and unschool ourselves from the things that we've learned. And I think one of the things that I recently discovered in terms of a privilege check is just acknowledging that not everyone gets time off to go vote. There are people in DC that get time off to go vote and they don't even live in DC. They just work in DC. So like just finding equity in the process and acknowledging ways that we can bring more people to the table. And also acknowledging why some voices are not heard and
Yeah.
finding ways to close that gap is so important.
Another nugget, a privilege check. Have you done a privilege check on yourself? I love that. Or your process, or your systems, your organization, a privilege check. I love
A
that.
privilege check. And I
Yeah.
think that sometimes, like, part of why I mentioned the unschooling is that sometimes we have to unschool ourselves, particularly of false narratives. So for me, I'll use myself and do an external privilege check. The narrative could be, you know, I come from a two-parent household. That's a privilege. I am engaged and I don't have any children. So I'm not like a black single mom. And I'm not throwing shade at anyone. I'm just saying that the typology and the stereotypes that apply to
Yep.
communities, or stereotypes about east of the river, that
Yep.
everyone is working poor or zero income or low income earners, or whatever those things may be, when the reality is they don't apply to me or they don't apply to most of my neighbors. So part of what I bring in my leadership is honest storytelling,
I love,
elevating truths and understanding that many things can coexist,
that's right.
and honoring all of those stories, all of those lived experience when we make policy and when we make legislation. Like, yeah, just honoring that.
Yeah, I love that. I'm like, I did not come from a two-parent household. I do live east of the river. I'm a single mom. I'm on the,
Yes,
but yes,
but
I still
but part
speak
of
from
your privilege check would be, you're a competitive income earner, you're
yeah,
college educated, you're
yeah,
proficient in English.
that's
Um,
right.
you know what I mean? Like, you've held high level positions. You've
Yes,
traveled. Even having an American passport is a privilege. And I think that sometimes we normalize things in our lives
yes,
where, we don't think of them as a privilege. We don't think of them as a currency because it's been normalized.
yeah.
Like
I also
having
talk
an
about that.
American passport, you know what I mean? But for some people, that is a privilege, being
Mhm.
able to travel places without, travel to other countries without, you know, challenges that other folks may experience.
Yeah, no, I always say, despite me checking all the narrative boxes of what, it's like, oh, she's all those things. I'm like, I live a very privileged life. I'm very, very privileged, and I acknowledge that, and honor that. And there's a lot of work that goes in to being able to have those privileges, particularly when you live in a society that would do its best sometimes
Yeah.
to make
And
sure that
that's
those
part
privileges
and
do
that's
not
part
exist.
of the leadership, when you bring your authentic self, independent of your personal story or your the stereotypes that may be applied to you, pushing forward, showing up authentically, honestly, challenging narratives, and knowing that you deserve to take up space,
Yeah.
and you deserve to be in the room. And it's not about doing it perfectly, it's just about doing it authentically and with the right heart posture. And it goes
Mhm.
back to the fact or fiction. Do I deserve to be here? That could be something where you're like, no, negative self talk. And it's like, no, I do deserve to be in the room. I do deserve to be heard. And sometimes it can be just the story that others have told about you that can prevent you from showing up.
That's so funny because I was just about to ask one of my kind of last couple of questions, and the one was, how do you stay grounded, right, when you're grounded in your authentic self and your identity, particularly in this political arena where there's sometimes an expectation to show up a certain way or to appear or be a certain way. It's like, how do you stay Leniqua Dominique? Right. So, and what would be your suggestion or some tips for others who find themselves in that space where they're like, I don't feel comfortable. They're questioning whether or not they should be here. Should I now start to code switch? Should I change my policies or my viewpoints or my values even because everyone else is putting this pressure on me for something that I want so badly?
I think that it's so important to be introspective and do the work. So when you make a decision on the front end, you know that you've been prayerful, you've been meditative, and you're able to cleave to that peace. You know, you're able to cleave to like what made you make that decision. For me, I'm very prayerful. You know, I cleave to my spiritual anchor. When I have a spiritual piece about something, I move forward in the direction that I felt was revealed to me through meditation, prayer, quieting external voices, journaling. For some people, they do a pros and cons list. For me, I'm meditative and I'm prayerful, and I cleave to the peace. And I'm not expecting the journey to be straight or linear. It could be jagged, but I still cleave to the peace to know that I'm going to get to the finish line. And I also practice a lot of like body scans, listening to my body. Um, I can't remember the name for that. I want to say
A body
somatic.
scan.
No,
Yeah,
it's a
I mean,
somatic. It's a somatic practice actually,
mhm,
and it's
mhm.
where you like scan your body. Are
Okay.
my shoulders to my ears? Is my jaw clenched? You know, your body keeps a score, keeps an inventory of what you're navigating. And as the young people would say, they would say, "Oh, I feel some type of way." As scholars would say, they might say, I feel some type of way too, but they also say it's emotional data. So, honoring the emotional data you get in experiences and situations. So, accumulation of all of those things give me a confidence and help me to stay very centered when I'm advocating for everyone in all 8 wards. You know,
I
I've
love
listened.
that.
Yeah,
No,
I've
I'm sorry.
listened. You know, I've listened. I'm honoring the stories. Very balanced. I'm very measured. And then I move forward. And once I have that intel of listening and the practicality and the scholarship, I'm ready to move forward. And then when I'm on the council, I'm ready to fight. I'm going 10 toes down for every neighbor throughout the city, uncompromising about that truth, because my goal is not to get all of the lofty endorsements like we talked about previously from different organizations or, you know, big businesses. I want the endorsement of the people you trust, your mothers, you know, your neighbors, your um, grocery store attendant, the people that you know that you've been doing community with, the people that have had personal impact and exchanges with me, the people that see my heart, know my work ethic, know my ability to get things done, and the people that you trust. True relational organizing.
Um, I was, when you were talking about the body scans and meditating and prayer and journaling, I chuckled because anybody who follows me and continues, tunes in, I always say sometimes it sounds cliche, but I hope people understand that there's actually legitimacy in this because every guest and me or this is what it is like if that is absent and void in your life, I really think that it's going to be extremely hard for people to reach a level of clarity, to reach a level of being able to identify a path for them to like confidently walk down and be aligned with. You have to take the time to allow for you to check on you and reflect on you and invest in you in ways that are beyond
Absolutely.
the hustle and the bustle and the noise of other people. Because if you're constantly in the move, if you're not in alignment, if you're not having conversations with God or whomever you believe, if you're not writing down your feelings and seeing where am I carrying stress and I promise you, you're just going to be going through them. Even but why am I not hitting my
Yeah.
goals?
But what I love is that when something is true and right, it'll be affirmed multiple times, right?
Clearly, all the
So
time, all the time.
in the Christian world, they say, you know, write the vision, make it plain.
Make it plain.
And some, you know, other spaces, they say affirmation, speak things, write it down and say it out loud. You
Right.
know, in the academic world, they say, you know, kinesthetic learning, you know, write it down, or audio learning, say it so you hear it, or repetition. Also, in the professional world, they talk about not just setting goals, but executive strategy, like writing the goal and then creating a plan to execute. So it's being affirmed, all of the things you said, in so many different communities and so many different spaces. But guess what? All of these really smart people that left a syllabus on how to get this done are saying the same thing. Write it down, get quiet, be reflective, be prayerful on it, listen to your body, eat well, stay hydrated, mind your business, oil your
I need
edges.
it.
Oil
I
your
gotta
edges.
draw
You
my
know,
edges
they're saying all the same things. Yes.
back. So this is my final question then, and I think this is a perfect segue. We're talking about goals, vision, and execution. You are running for DC Council at Large. What's your goal? What's your vision? And how do you plan to execute when you secure that seat?
Amen. When I secure that seat. So, my
Mhm.
goal and vision for the city is one that's really fresh and vibrant, one that centers all people in all 8 wards, one that honors all our neighbors, you know, the ability for seniors to age in place and to live with dignity. Western culture is the only culture that I can think of that devalues folks as they age. Age is a privilege, not a right. And if we're blessed, we all get old. And I would love to create a louder, stronger culture of honoring people that are pillars in the district. So making sure that all bodies and not just some get to be here and get old. I really want to see everyone thriving, not struggling between taking care of someone you love and working a job that you need. So I have a platform that's dedicated to caregiving, you know, aging in place and senior support services, and also expanding the definition of caregiver. It's not just for folks that are geriatric age, meaning 60 and over. It's for moms, it's for self care, it's for universal leave and paid leave, it's for people that have invisible disabilities like myself. You know,
Mhm.
I have Hashimoto's thyroiditis. So making sure that you know you can take care of yourself and have proper support. It's for prioritizing menopause care, perimenopause. It's not just aging, the brain fog, the fatigue, the body aches, making sure that women conversations about women's bodies are led by informed women or women that are strong allies, and that we're in the room, and that we're not microdosing on medications that are designed for cis men, but we're using medications that are designed for cis women, right? And managing our hormones and having access to appropriate care. It's for people to be able to not be displaced, that development can happen without displacement, and that economic prosperity is all in all 8 wards. I live east of the river in the amazing community of Deanwood. It's so amazing. We have Marvin Gaye Park, which is the second, no, the longest municipal park in the District of Columbia. We have Kenilworth Aquatic Gardens. We have so many cultural and historical sites, like homes built by Tuskegee Airmen, but there's still so much to be desired. For a population of 90,000 people, we have 3 grocery stores. Now, when you look at Ward 3, they have 17. That's not an issue of just a food swamp or a food desert. The real issue is food apartheid, which is denying resources to people based off of class, race, and location. That is a legislative issue. The city that I want is where everyone is welcome, everyone's thriving, everyone can afford to be here. There's a lot of career opportunity, and diverse stories and voices are represented in our legislation. One of the many ways that I'm elevating that is through the 3 E's. It's education, making sure that little scholars can read on level by 3rd grade. Independent of where people live in the city, 119,000 little kids can't read on level, and that's
Mhm.
gutting. Reading on level by 3rd grade is an excellent indicator of not just academic outcomes, but professional ones as well. The second is equity. I've talked a lot about that and making sure that the government is working the same for everyone. And then lastly is environmental justice. Iris touched on this a bit. She said I invited her for a walk. That's very common. I love an urban trail. I love a hike. I love cleaning the Anacostia. I love using my community as a case study for environmental justice issues. And I want to continue that. I want to make sure that DC's greener and cleaner, and that we're creating green jobs, and I'm supporting the bottle bill. My house and my family, we were used in a documentary to collect data about air quality in Ward 7. I have a really robust plan around rat mitigation. I have the plastic problem. Cultivated chicken is legal in some parts of DC in some restaurants. We shouldn't have to police our food. We shouldn't have to police our water. There's an invisible crisis there. There's so many things that I want to elevate and bring awareness around that we're not talking about, that we need
Mhm.
to be talking about, that will impact people's lives in a positive way, very early on, like day one. So
Yeah.
I'm encouraging folks to learn more about me at Vote Jenkins for DC. I hope you guys are as excited about my candidacy as I am, and I hope to earn your vote and support by June 16th.
Oh, I love it. We could talk. I could talk to you all day about what it is that you're doing and trying to do. But I said I'm going to keep it under an hour so you
You
can go knock on
did.
doors and shake down those coins. But again, I am wishing you nothing but the very best. You certainly have my support, and
Honored.
continue to say I'm just really proud of you. And this was great to see and hear, I think, more of this like personal element and part of you. And to your point, if people want to know more about your policy agenda and the platform that you're, pushing forward, definitely check you out on social media and go to your website. But thank you.
Thank you for having me. I had a fantastic time, and I hope that you invite me back
I don't
again.
know. Listen, I mean, you girl, you work for me. You work for this. Work
I've
for
been
me.
waiting so long for this moment. I'm so happy that I finally got to be a guest. And
Yes.
and you've seen
Oh,
so many different, iterations and evolutions. I always tell folks that we are plural beings, like we're not
that's
just
right.
one thing. So you've seen me as entrepreneur, you've seen me as, candidate, you've seen me as community organizer, you've seen me as mom.
Yeah.
So I'm just
And I
really,
think that
really
that is such a
excited.
good, here we go, I know we wrap it up, but that's another good nugget for people to take away, that we are plural beings. Who you are today is not who you have to be tomorrow. And that's okay. And actually, you can be
Absolutely.
multiple things at one time. People say to me, they're like, what? You're a Tipsy Tuesday host, you're a senior vice president, you're this, you're that. And I'm like, I can be more than one thing. Yes, I have my own
Absolutely. Absolutely.
because I care and I love my good job. So, I can be
And
all
you're
things.
always going to be mom,
I'm
right?
always going to be mom. I was
So
just,
it's just like
being
some of the
mom.
identities don't shed, they just evolve, right?
That's
Some of
right.
them just evolve.
That's got to bring them all together. So thank you, thank you. Now go get out there. We just got
I
another
am.
comment.
I'm
Someone
going
said
to knock on doors right now.
they're proud of you. Let me give you some. Okay, let you see a couple more. I don't know if I can show, but they're proud of you. Always to hear from you. Look at you. Just keep shining, sis. Keep shining.
Yay.
Yay. All right. Thank you for tuning in to this month's Tipsy Tuesday Live. I'll be back next month in June. Just a shout out and a plug. It's my birthday month. So I am officially in Gemini season. So if people want to start sending me Gemini season gifts, you can do that effective today and immediately all month long. Okay. Jenkins in June. That's what's up. That's right. June 16th. June 16th. So, all right. Have a good one. Thank
All right.
you.
Bye.
And we have officially ended.
Yay.